What's up, everybody? Energy is Love podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. So we're getting close to the end of the year. It's December 20th right now. So this episode you guys are about to listen to may, in fact, be the last episode of the year. It's really a busy time, obviously, for everybody out there. So if we don't get around to getting some more interviews recorded and episodes released before 2017, I hope that everybody out there is enjoying the holidays, spending time with their family, all that kind of good stuff. So take into consideration that this may be the last episode that you'll ever hear of the podcast, at least this year. And we'll be back in 2017 for sure, but you never know. We may get some more interviews done in the meantime. So obviously, you remember energyislovepodcast.com is the greatest place to follow the show, find all the episodes, all that kind of stuff. Go to our Facebook page. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, everywhere else, blah, 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 blah. I always mention all that shit. But you guys know it because you listen and you are fans of the Energy is Love podcast. Thank you very much. So in 2017, January 13th and 14th to be exact, is the Infinite Possibilities Higher Consciousness Expo. It's a huge event. It's a 2-day event that's held every year up in Ogden, Utah. So for all of our listeners that are local here in Utah, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to come out and experience some energy. There's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of practitioners, a lot of different vendors and things that go on, presenters, speakers, performers, artists. This event has something for everybody, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful experience. So January 13th and 14th, remember, up in Ogden, Utah, it's held at the Union Station. Hop on Facebook, whether it's on our Facebook page or if you just search out the Infinite Possibilities Higher Consciousness Expo, you will find their Facebook page and their event, and you can see everybody that's going to be there. So make a point, schedule it on the calendar, do whatever you need to do, and hopefully you guys will come out and get to experience all the joy and happiness and wonderful things that takes place at that expo. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Crystal Water Float Spa located in Tooele, Utah. Go online to crystalwaterfloat.com or jump onto Facebook and check out their Facebook page, Crystal Water Float. When it comes to floating, sensory deprivation tanks, dream pods, all those wonderful things that you can lay back and float in, Crystal Water is a great place to do it at. If you never experienced it and you live in the area, please call them, contact them, do whatever you need to do, and then come out and float. Lay back in a tank and enjoy it. It's a beautiful experience. It's a wonderful time of year to do it because it's cold outside, and crawling inside a tank and laying back in that warm, warm, salty water. It's really, really magnificent. So remember, go online, crystalwaterfloat.com. Also, if you are looking to open up your own float center, maybe you are a listener somewhere else. We have a lot of listeners up in Canada, the US, everywhere. And you want to open up your own float center. Crystal Water Float Spa is the nation's only distributor for the Dream Pod. The Dream Pod is a beautiful, beautiful flotation tank, and you can find out more at dream-pod.com. Go check it out. They just recently released the new VMAX, which is one of the largest tanks on the market for floating, one of the largest pods. You can now get your Dream Pod shipped locally here in the U.S. through Crystal Water Float Spa. So go check them out, guys. Remember, crystalwaterfloat.com or dream-pod.com. Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode, I had the opportunity, a wonderful opportunity, to speak with Kaela McGuire. It's a wonderful episode. Kaela is a super magnificent person who does quite a bit of work with clients in regards to fully embracing their authentic self in so many different variety of ways. And in this episode, Kaela shares a lot about her own personal experiences, as well as the way that she kind of works with clients. And we dived into a bunch of different things. You can go find more about Kaela at kaelamcguire.com. She's also on Facebook. She has a really awesome Facebook group called Passion with a Purpose. We'll have links to all of those wonderful things in the show notes, obviously. So now you guys get to sit back and relax, turn it up, and enjoy this wonderful episode with Kaela McGuire on the Podcast for the Universe. Enjoy.
You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The Podcast for the Universe.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Kaela McGuire. I probably should have asked if that's how we pronounce your name, but that's how you pronounce your name, right?
It sure is. Good job.
So first off, Kaela, I have to thank you because I've had a couple of episodes recently Sarah and Susan have both been on the podcast, and you connected me with those people. You know, gave me their information and everything like that. But some super neat people, really neat ladies, and they were really, really good episodes of the podcast. I was a big fan.
Yeah, I listened to both shows. Great work. Lots of amazing people in our tribe.
So first off, because I want to get into a whole bunch of different things. I know I say I don't really have anything in mind that we're going to talk about. I always have kind of a loose idea of where I want the show to go, but we always leave room for it to go wherever the hell it's going to go. But at the core of what you do, what's the easiest way to describe it in like the shortest amount of words or phrases or whatever the case may be? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. My passion is really to inspire others to live in their authenticity. I feel that, especially in our society, we're so conditioned, you know, through the media or through our socialization or just our internal family programming to become a certain person or, you know, live up to certain expectations. And just really passionate about helping my clients kind of break down all of those expectations and rediscover their true essence, just their true authenticity and what their divine will and purpose is, because we each have one.
That's the shortest description you could come up with.
I have a really hard time nutshelling, Craig.
So if we think about...
So I inspire others to just live an authentic, unabashed life.
Okay, excellent. Well, they're both great descriptions. When it comes to energy work or energy healing or energy practice or spiritual practice, or is there a specific modality or type or genre that you typically connect with more?
I have a toolbox that I like to pull from, and I really don't know what I'm going to be pulling when it comes from session to session, but I typically find myself working with the subconscious mind. So I'm certified in NLP, and so it's all about the words that we choose to use, the dialogue that we have internally, externally, you know, and so I listen to my clients. I listen to the story that they have carried, and I'm someone who's going to call you out if I feel that you're limiting yourself or I feel you're subscribing to something that's keeping you small. With love, I will, you know, mirror that back to my client and just really have them explore where that originated or how that serves them or how it served them up to this point. So I feel, although I do work with the angels and I work with astrology and I work with oracle cards and all of that, my true, where I like to go is just with the subconscious mind. I mean, that's just, we're having a human experience. Yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience. So stay grounded in that experience.
So in that space, in the subconscious, do you find that most times, because this is my experience and not just within my own personal path and journey and everything like that, but in working with other people, typically in the subconscious is where we hide all of our shit. Where everything that we don't want to look at, everything we don't want to deal with, we kind of shove it into that subconscious, you know, corner of our mind and our space. And it just sits there and kind of brews and stews and morphs into this big black ugly thing that eventually kind of swallows us up if we let it.
And that's our shadow. And you know, there's a law of attraction is becoming very popular, the whole new age movement. And I love that so many people are tapping into their inner light and everything. But our shadow, our inner darkness, we exist in duality. And that is a part of us. That is where a lot of magic is held. And unless we really dive into that subconscious realm within us, we're missing out on a lot of our essence.
Shadow, like the dark side, right? The subconscious, the part that we hide from. And then people in the new age community or the movement or the spirituality or whatever we want to call it, I don't think there necessarily needs to be a label or a title, and I don't even think there really is a good one. But, you know, people I think that not only I've had on the podcast, but people that maybe listen to the podcast out there, a lot of times this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and it's not coming hopefully from a place of judgment or anything like that, but people dance around in that light and airy-fairy energy, I think, way too much. And I think they get too caught up in that and thinking that it is just all love and light and that we can stay in that place of connecting our heart centers to the universe or whatever we want to call it. And at the end of the day, you're still just avoiding all of this shit that you are avoiding.
I like to call that spiritual bypassing. So say something comes up that someone really doesn't want to look at, whether it's too painful or they just aren't clear around, what really happened, or they don't trust whatever it is to go there. So they just think that if they keep their thoughts positive and they, say all these affirmations and they surround themselves with crystals and unicorns. I mean, I love crystals and unicorns, don't get me wrong, but if they just focus on that, everything that's trying to work out within them will come up in another way, and it will probably cause them to experience a lot more suffering than is necessary. But spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call it will be communicating with us in a way that will get our attention. So we can take the subtle signs, or we can, get beat over, the side of the head, but love and lighting our way out of situations will not always work.
Do you find that a lot though? Like whether it's with clients or even just people that you kind of run with and associate with in the same arena, I suppose, that people, I think, tend to, they just get stuck in that space and they don't necessarily see it for being stuck. And, but like you said, they just want to use that love and that light to kind of ignore or push through what they're experiencing.
Absolutely. I see it a lot. And I find that people can come up with some shame around their manifesting abilities if they create a vision board and they throw a bunch on this vision board and nothing comes true. Why? Why isn't it in the cards for me? Well, perhaps because all of that you're wanting to bring into your life, there's a lot between you and all of that, right? And so everything unlike that has to come up to be released. So if you're wanting to bring in, say, a relationship, you want to bring in an unconditional loving relationship. Well, what have the patterns been in your relationships up to this point? And have you really acknowledged them and worked through them? Or are you just expecting to turn around and have a perfect relationship? Well, if you haven't learned the lessons that are trying to come through, it's very likely that you can make all the vision boards you want, but you'll still attract that same theme. And so it's not about the vision board. It's about the frequency. Are you willing to let go of what it is that's keeping you from attracting this into your life? And that could be a big part of your story that you've been holding on to. That could be something you're really identified with. But if you're wanting to attract something different, you have to let go. And that's really hard for a lot of people because the unknown is scary.
The unknown is scary. I think 9 times out of 10, that's why people stay stuck in the space that they're in, because, they might glimpse or they might hope and they might believe that there's potential for this or that, but at the end of the day, we don't really know, and we have to kind of take that leap of faith and go into that space, hoping that what we're striving for is actually going to be there when we show up.
Just trust the process. We get so attached to the destination, and, me along with the rest of them, we just have to remember that the journey is just as important.
So tell me about your journey. Tell me about your experience. I know because ever since we kind of connected online through Facebook and things like that, I've had the opportunity to kind of follow some of the stuff that you put out there, which is good stuff, by the way.
Thank you.
But I know that in your own personal space, it seems like you've been going through that really shedding of a whole bunch of shit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's good stuff. I like that stuff. That for me, that's the stuff that people really have to get rid of. I think if even, we talk about a vision board, I think vision boards are, honestly, I think they're a waste of time. Not that, if you want to do a vision board, that's great, but I don't think that's I don't think that's how we manifest. I think that's how we distract ourselves. Where was I going with that? So for you personally, in your own space, tell me a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten from, your upbringing, your childhood, the experiences that you've had to go through and kind of learn and gain from, to kind of where you're at now. You don't have to do this one in a short amount of words.
Good, because we know that I'm not very good at that. So when I was younger, I was immersed in Christianity. So I went to Christian school, I went to youth group, I went to Sunday school. I pretty much everything in my world was Christianity. And for some reason, what I absorbed through the church was a lot different than the rest of my family. I don't know if it was because I was in the Sunday school like the kids, I don't know, but I took Christianity as if you did anything, quote unquote, that was a sin. So to me, that was if you cussed, if you drank alcohol, if you did anything that wasn't like according to God's word, then you have to ask for forgiveness or else you're going to go to hell. And so I was the little kid who would cry every time my parents cussed, anytime my parents would drink out. I mean, they had no idea, why is my kid always upset with me, you know? And I just really, really wanted them to go to heaven with me. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor little girl. But I just really, really thought that I knew exactly what it would take to get to heaven. So that did not work out well when I was trying to project that outward, right? It was not received at all. I was just shut down. And here I was confused because, wait, I just really want the best for you, but you're shutting me down, you know? And so then I entered, you know, my teenage years. I went into public school and I just started partying. Like if I have a predestined path, then I'm going to have fun while I get there. And I never got into too hard of partying, but, you know, like teenagers do. And then once I got to college, I went to Sonoma State and I studied humanistic psychology. And I got into all of the Eastern philosophies. And I'm like, okay, I can hang with this. I can hang with God, quote unquote, being an energy rather than a man with a white beard and a staff who's counting all my sins, and you know what I mean? And so it just was this massive relief. And I should take a couple steps back. In high school, I actually was bullied really bad, and because I have a very big personality, very big opinions and all of that. And so I was shut down so much that when I did come out and use my voice, it was almost overly as such, right? And so that wasn't well accepted either. And so I actually became suicidal when I was 13, and my parents put me into therapy because they didn't know what else to do. And the therapist helped me so much just gain a sense of self and self-worth and self-love, and helped me really see that I did have a purpose, that I knew by age 14 that is exactly what I would be doing when I got older. And so I really started reading psychology books and astrology books and all of that all throughout high school. So then I get to college and I study humanistic psychology, and I just dive into how we co-create and how, you know, I studied the psychology of yoga for a year before I even got on a mat and practiced, you know, the asana of it. And so I just really love different philosophies and different theories. And I started to apply them into my life, and I felt as though I was shut down more significantly by my father while growing up. And so when I moved to college, I actually cut that relationship off. And I said, you know, I need to be accepted for who I am fully, and not shut down for who I am in order to have a relationship with you. And he wasn't able to meet me where I was at, and that was fine and whatever. So I took those 10 years really applying every theory that I learned to my relationship with him. I learned forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about condoning someone else's behavior. Forgiveness is all about creating the space within us that we've kept, you know, closed off due to holding that grudge. And I just learned so much about myself and about others. And I was told if I didn't get a master's in psychology, I'd never be able to practice. And that just never sat right with me. And so I moved back to El Dorado County or Sacramento County after college, and I started studying like spiritual life coaching and hypnotherapy and NLP and angel therapy. Pretty much anything that caught my attention, I became certified in it, just because learning about the human mind and human behavior, not only did it justify, it helped me come to peace with the way that I treated others and the way that others treated me while growing up. It really helped me see behind the behavior. But it also just gave me a whole new level of compassion for humanity. And so I opened up a spiritual center called Trinity Sanctuary with my best friend. And we each had our own private practice. And we also had a large front room where we held workshops. And I started attracting the same type of client the person who was super passionate about something, but was stuck in their life, like their 9-to-5 corporate job or whatever, and just didn't have any balance and really felt like they were being suffocated. And I'm like, okay, this is a very familiar story because I've lived this. So obviously that's why I'm here to help you. And so I started helping people just really tap into their gifts and come up with a workshop or a private practice or a business or anything like that. And if they had a workshop available to them to create, then I would also help them promote it and market it. And then we would hold the workshop at the center. And so it kind of became a learning center, a teaching center, a community base. I really started learning about my passion of community. So we each have a gift. Why not support each other? You know, I have a lot of people that I can send to you to interview on your podcast. I love nothing more than connecting people who, if I can't help you, I'm pretty sure I probably know someone else who can, you know, so there's enough abundance for everybody. I don't believe in competition. I wholeheartedly want everyone to succeed in their life, living an authentic, unabashed life, just fully being themselves. And this passion comes from my journey of discovering my authenticity by breaking down what everybody else told me I was. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you still have the center up and running, or have you transitioned into other things?
Yeah, I closed that a little over a year ago, and I actually became an apprentice for an astrologer. So I just kind of went back to studying. I was going through some personal stuff, and I had a couple clients here and there. But if I'm really going through it, I tend to take a step back from my practice and really do some self-work before I can show up for others. So I've come back into my practice probably over the last, 3 or 4 months fully. And yeah, I'm on fire now. Got to get through it to get to it.
So I want to go back a little bit because you talked about being 13 years old and having suicidal thoughts or whatever and going to see a therapist or a counselor. Mm-hmm. Was it just did you ever attempt suicide? Was there some catalytic thing that had happened that drove your parents to that? Or was it more or less just you had those thoughts that, that kind of that energy that you were stuck in?
I did attempt suicide. So at the time, about a year prior, my boyfriend, I was only 12. So, I had an older brother, so I grew up very, very fast. And my parents split when I was 10, and they both were off with their partners. So we had the house to ourselves quite a bit. So I was an adult from a very young age, it felt like. And my boyfriend at 12 raped me. And then, and so I lost a lot of self-esteem, obviously, there. And then my best friend, who was male, became my boyfriend. And we were in junior high. We thought we knew everything at that time, right? And then we got split to different high schools. So I ended up transitioning to his high school to be with him. He's now diagnosed schizophrenic, but at the time he just totally turned on me and basically through a lot of times telling me over and over and over and over the world would be a better place without me in it. I finally believed him, and I just took every pill in my dad's medicine cabinet. And fortunately, I told a friend, and the friend called the cops, and they came and rescued me.
So
it seems so far away. It seems like it wasn't even my lifetime because I've healed so much around it. But yeah, it's kind of a trip to think about that time.
And I sure hope that you're okay kind of going into this, because I think it's important for people. So many times, all the shit that we hide from, all the stuff that we would put in our subconscious that we would distance ourselves from, we don't look at it, and we sure as hell don't want anybody else to look at it.
Right.
But I think in the process of bringing forth some of that shadow stuff and some of that energy that we want to keep hidden, it helps empower people on the outside, the person that may be listening, the person that, will connect with you, to give them strength and inspiration in order to kind of face some of those things. Not, they might not necessarily want to come on a podcast and talk about it, but they might be willing to at least look at it within their own space. So that's why I kind of want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because that makes way more sense to me. Originally, when you were talking, I'm like, I understand being bullied and things like that, but I had a hard time connecting. I'm like, hey, if you're being bullied at school, how do you go from that to, going to see a therapist because you have suicidal tendencies or thoughts?
Right.
So that complete story makes way more sense.
More than meets the eye, always, right?
So if you look at your life, first off, can you see, looking back and having the ability to put pieces together now with all the information and the wealth of understanding that you have now, can you see, let's see, how do I describe it? Things in your life, maybe prior to that time period, 12, 13, 14 years old, that set you up for that in a sense, where you attracted that into your space anyhow?
Yeah, I do believe that we have wounds to be healed in this life, and we will attract relationships that will bring up those wounds. And it's up to us if we just project the wounds back outward or if we really look within, right? And so I feel that growing up in a family who did not seek to understand me. Remember, I was telling you, like, I used to cry over the stupidest shit. And rather than stopping and saying, Kaela, why are you upset right now? Instead, they just fucking chased me down the hall and beat me until I shut up, you know? And so I think my self-worth was just pounded down so much that once it got to the point where I had first boyfriend raped me, second boyfriend tells me to kill myself. I mean, of course, that was just validation after validation to my lack of self-worth. So my parents never, still, to be honest, to this day, have never once acknowledged the rape or the suicide, or the attempted suicide. However, the way that they acknowledged it was, we don't know what the hell to do, so we have a friend who told us about this therapist, and we're going to take you there Tuesday at 4, or whatever it was, right? It was just very much like, oh God, A plus B must equal C, so here, we need to take you to this appointment. Well, what happened in those appointments was, oh my gosh, someone actually cares to get to know me. Someone actually cares to like hear what I have to say, you know, and just that mirror and that space that was held for me was, at the age of 13, I never could have articulated this, but looking back, that was everything. That was what I needed to feel worthy. And so to create that space for others, you know, that's why I have a Facebook group, is to really hold a space for others to be able to share their authentic self with others who care, you know, because not everybody on our Facebook list really cares what we're going through, right? So to be in a tribe who gets you and who sees you and who seeks to understand you and reflect your truth back to you is so important. So I truly believe that all of that was set up for me so I could really, you know, value that in a way not everybody does.
Yeah. Kudos to your parents, even though they don't necessarily understand what the hell's happening and how to really help you. At least they took that extra step, where I think a lot of times that goes on, you know, people don't do that. Parents struggle and have no idea what to do with kids at times. And so at least they did that a little bit, and it sounds like it made a big difference. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
You talk about your authentic self and being your authentic self. So I'm going to pick that apart a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I think I think it's really important. I think truth is really an important thing, not just what we outwardly project into the world, but our words and the way that we speak, as well as the way that we think. And so if you look at, first describe to me what you think being 100% authentic really is, or what it means, or how you embrace that and live that.
If we were to let go of the opinions or judgments of anybody around us, who would we be, right? So I also work with teenagers, little teenage girls specifically, and I can ask them 10 things they're not good at, and they'll tell me right away. But if I ask them 10 things they're good at, they have a hard time. So I feel that when we really take the time to just forget about what anybody else thinks and what anybody else told us that we are or told us that we should be, and just remove the mask. What makes your heart sing? Even if it's weird, you know, what is weird anyway? What is normal? Who defines what, you know? So I just really think it's just taking off the mask. Who are you without the opinion of anybody else? It's really that simple.
And you feel like you've got that figured out?
Well, it's a daily process for sure. I mean, we're having a human experience, so I definitely feel that I have a conscious awareness of when I'm conforming, so to speak, versus living unabashedly me. And I'm still working through that. And I reconnected with my dad after 10 years of not talking to him. And I realized through those 10 years, he studied, some spirituality as well and read some books and all that I read. And so awesome. We have a connection that we never had before. Well, this week, I just realized that there's a lot of me that I'm not allowed to be around him. I'm not allowed to show certain aspects of me when I'm in his presence, or express, I should say, certain aspects of me. I'm not allowed to talk about some things that have happened that very well did happen. So the fact that I'm not allowed to do anything in any relationship is suffocating to my soul. And so I stood up for myself, and I made sure I had an open heart, and with every word that I said, it came from a place of love for myself and love for him. And I just said, I've done so much work to break down these walls and take off these masks and really live a life of being authentic. And I don't feel I can be that around you. So unless we can, let go of some of these conditions you've placed on a relationship, I'm not sure that I can fully be in this relationship any longer. And I received a response back yesterday that he received it. And then this morning I got a response that he'll no longer be in my life. And, there was a time in my life where I really would have had a hard time with that and taken it personal. And I, of course, took a deep breath when I got the email today, and I love him. I'll never stop loving him, but I love me too. And I deserve to, be me without having someone else's conditions around me for the sake of their comfort. It just is not okay. So I do feel that I'm walking my talk in that. I really do.
Hey, congratulations. I think that's a good thing, right? I hope that. I always worry that, especially when we do these interviews over the internet or over Skype like this, I hate that I can't, it's so difficult. Like, I'm not hopefully coming off like an asshole or judgmental in any way, shape, or form. No. So I think that being authentic and being true to yourself is really an important thing. But I think sometimes we use that as well as some sort of mask or guise to kind of continually hide. So we're going to put forth this front of pure authenticity, and I'm my genuine self, and I'm living from my heart, and I speak my truth, and all of these different types of things, which are all wonderful things. But I think at the end of the day, sometimes we still, and maybe we don't, and maybe you don't. By all means, I'm not judging you in any way, and I'm not using you as an example. I'm just talking in general. But I think that people still use that as a mask, still use that as some way to really... Because if we are truly ourselves, so if we think about, I'll just use myself for an example. I have obviously this huge spectrum of emotion that I feel and go through. And there's days where I'm very, very loving and committed and compassionate, and I have all of this love and light that's flowing from my heart, and, all of these different things, and I feel really connected. And then there's other days where I just fucking hate everybody. Totally. And I don't want to talk to people, and I'm rude, and I'll like sit here and have these thoughts that run through my mind that are very... terrible, terrible thoughts. And that's, in my mind, that's me. That's me being authentic in a sense. That's the aspect of me where there's days where, I want to go around and give everybody a hug because everybody is stemming from the same source of energy that I stem from, and I have to love everybody. And then there's other days where I want to like trip people and somebody cuts me off, and I can't move through life lying to myself that I want to hug everybody and ignore the fact that there's days where I want to shove people up against the wall and tell them to get the hell out of my way because I'm trying to move.
So I think you and I are on the same page. I think that is living authentically, is respecting the fact that you have those days. If you tried to love and light your way out of those days, you'd be spiritual bypassing whatever's coming up for you, So I totally believe that living authentically includes all of the above, because if you're having a bad day and you're feeling pessimistic and you're feeling sarcastic or whatever, but you're not feeling that you can make that sarcastic joke because someone might take it wrong, that would be not living authentically. But if you said it anyway, that's you. So that's exactly what I mean, Craig, is just not really letting what other people think or judge about you interfering with how you're responding to the world.
See, and I think
whatever that looks like.
I think even that itself, where we don't want to let the influence of other people's thoughts affect us, I think that's ingrained in our genetics and in being human, where we've taken it to this level now where we're at because we have such awareness and consciousness, but to a certain extent because we're on this planet, we're in this experience of really being connected with one another, even if we don't, God, Kaela, my brain is just blinking out.
It's okay. So can I say something?
No. Absolutely.
Well,
help me.
I heard you start to touch on it's also learned that we don't want to live according to someone else's feelings or beliefs or judgments, right?
Well, so you reminded me now. So the idea that we're concerned about what other people think about us and we shouldn't worry about that. I think it goes to I think that's the surface level. And I think the deeper part is something that's ingrained in our genetics, where because we're so interconnected with everybody on the planet and everybody that we associate with and everybody that we interact with, even, do you know what I mean, on the big, huge global scale, I think that's what the surface of it is where we think that we're letting other people influence us because they're going to view us or we're going to live a certain way. That I think we need to avoid and not do. But below that, I think we're so intricately connected that we are influenced by other people's thoughts and energy and their mood, even if we choose not to be. Does that make sense? So I think it's kind of folly.
It's a paradox. And so that's exactly why it's so important for us to each to live consciously. So I learned a formula when I went through my spiritual life coaching certification course, and that was from age 0 to 7, we're absorbing our belief systems, right? So we're absorbing those from our family, our school, society, the TV, the media, whatever, but we're learning the meanings of things, right? So we have a belief system which gives us the meaning, and then that meaning triggers an emotion within us, and then that emotion is going to create a behavior, and that behavior is going to give us our results in life. So if we want different results, we have to change our behavior, which means we have to change the emotion behind the meaning that we're giving the belief system. And all of that is in our subconscious mind, which is like 90% of what drives us, right? So from age 0 to 7, we're formulating the majority of our belief systems or absorbing them anyway. From 7 to 14, we're modeling those belief systems and getting them reinforced by everybody who taught them to us. And then from 14 to 21, we're socializing with other people who have similar belief systems. So now they're even further reinforced. So now we have these behaviors and these results in life, and we're adults, and we're having to unlearn everything that we learned in order to have different results, and it's like, okay, so at what point of that did you lose your authenticity and learn the belief system of someone around you, or did you really pick up a belief system that really does resonate with you, and all of that will be indicated by the world around you, by your results. Our outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on within us. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. To a certain extent.
To a certain extent. Yes. And I do believe that we're all interconnected. And I also do believe that we each have our own free will. So it's a definite paradox, and we each have an impact. And so I don't know if it's okay to plug my program, but I
Absolutely.
take people through a personal revolution program. It's a 90-day program. And the first half of that is there's 4 key relationships that we need. And the first half of the program is really developing the relationship with self, because that's where it all starts, right? So really finding your true authentic beliefs and really rediscovering who you were before you absorbed everything around you, right? Or picked up what you chose to pick up. And also really becoming mindful about the way you communicate in your relationships, because we have to take responsibility for our side of the communication, right? And then also our abundance mentality. Are you worthy of all the abundance that the planet has to offer you? Yes, the answer is yes, but do you believe that? And where did and to what level? And so we really go through abundance mentality and worthiness and health and wellness and life purpose and all of that. We just really get that relationship with the self down, because we have to have that sense of self-worth in order to truly move, in my belief anyway, in order to truly move through the world with that unabashed confidence. And so once they have that, my client gains that sense of worth and purpose and all of that, then we dive into developing that real deep devotional relationship with spirit. And you can call it source, you can call it universal, whatever you want to call it. But the energy that creates everything, and we are co-creators. And so through our meditation practice and that connection, or through, we talked about vision boards earlier, and I actually do like vision boards. I hold a vision board workshop every year. But the reason why I brought that up is because there's so much more to a vision board than meets the eye. What vision boards are to me is setting that intention with the universe, like co-creating with the universe, just really making that declaration on paper, but realizing your self-worth and what you need to do to co-create that. We can't just paste it and expect it to happen. We have to consciously participate. Once we gain that relationship with the universe, then we can find our role in our relationship with our community. So now we have a relationship with ourselves, relationship with spirit, and now we're finding our relationship in our community. Who is your tribe? Who do you want to support? Who can support you? How can you network? How can you make an impact? And so just finding your community is so important. And then the final key relationship is a relationship to the planet. So really making conscious choices every single day, recycling to at the most basic of levels. It's just really making conscious choices, because there are generations that will be coming after us. It's not just all about us. And so I feel with those 4 key relationships, one can certainly move through their life using their voice with an open heart, having clear confidence in what their message is and what impact they're striving to make, and receive it and experience it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's really profound, actually.
It is. And I think those are good for, the way you describe it, obviously, and the way that you lay it out. I mean, it is really, really good stuff. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How often do you work with men?
It's funny, because when I started my practice, I probably had 8 men to every 2 women. I had a lot of men, and then it started kind of switching. Now I think I only have 2 male clients right now, actually. And you know what I'm finding? Because I've had my private practice since 2010. So I'm going on 7 years. And I'm finding that now, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, there's been a real rise of divine feminine. And so if a man is not in touch with their feminine sense of self, they're experiencing a lot more suffering right now than I think they ever have before. Would you agree with that, being a man? That's just what I'm sensing. And so I'm finding a lot of men are retreating more. I don't know. That's just my observation. How do you feel about that?
Do you feel it's because they're not in touch with their feminine side or with their feminine energy?
I almost feel like it's too intense. I almost feel like it's become too intense. Whereas before, when I had my men clients, like it was kind of just about work and about, like, it wasn't really like the deep stuff that I'm working with clients now. I almost feel like really since 2012. I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with, the end of the world as we knew it or what. But prior to that, I felt like my client sessions, they were impactful, but they weren't as deep, like life-changing as they are now. Like the work now that people are being called to step into is it's not for the faint of heart. You're really being called to feel into the deepest seeds of your soul, whereas before I don't know what the difference is, but I just feel like I was talking to men more about work and, women and whatever. But I think maybe my practice has changed. And so that's why my clients are changing.
The reason I ask is because I think that I don't think that there's a lot of men in the New Age community or the spiritual community. Not that there aren't men. Obviously, there are plenty and plenty and plenty of men. But the more and more that I, talk to people, the more and more that I kind of look, they're kind of few and far in between. And it's such a heavily dominated area or field of women, where there's more women that are practicing in regards to kind of like energy work or healing or coaching or counseling or something like that. And the people that they typically work with are women. Now, I'm generalizing. Obviously, I know that there's men out there, and I'm not saying that there's not. But I think from my perspective and from my understanding of it, the work that has to be done in order to heal is so emotion-based, where you really have to, I think, relearn your emotions, how to connect with your emotions, what they really mean, and sit in that space of emotion and feeling. And men generally typically don't do that. And it's not because they don't want to. I think it's literally just they don't know how to. Does that make sense?
You articulated it very, very well. And that is exactly, I agree. I could not agree more, because my practice has changed so much that I am diving so deep with my clients right now that I think you nailed it. Previously, when I had more men clients, it was more just, weekly maintenance or whatever, checking in. Now that I'm doing such deep soul work, I don't think a lot of men know how to access that and don't necessarily trust it. Right? What does that mean? Is it too scary, or?
I think it's literally they just don't have the capacity for, and when I say they don't have the capacity, I think men are very, very strong. They have obviously a wealth of capacity when it comes to processing and dealing with emotion. I just don't think they have the skill set to realize it and connect with that space. And so I think that's why so many times it just kind of goes right over their head, where they're oblivious to it, or they don't really resonate or connect with it because they don't have the understanding of what it really is. So if you explain to a man, and obviously we're generalizing because I can hear men out there. I mean, we've had amazing men on the podcast that are very, very wonderful people. But if you were to just, explain to a man what it's like to open up your heart and stay in that space and allow those feelings to kind of just be and flow, and not look at them or judge them or shut them down or close them off, but just really be in that space of allowance and letting those emotions flow, they're not going to have a fucking clue what you're talking about. Because men want to compartmentalize and fix things so many times, where we're going to give them a problem. This is the problem with your life, and this is what you need to do to fix it. But the reality is, to heal, it's not that black and white. It's not that simple where we can just, here's a 6-step process of healing your life so that you can have more openness with your wife or in relationships or more success or whatever the case may be. So I think we have to come up with a way to get them to that space, but with a different understanding or a different way of teaching it to them, in a sense, or bringing it forward to them in a different way so that they can resonate and connect with it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And the 2 clients that I am currently working with who are male have always been very much in touch with their feminine side, but have repressed it due to shame of feeling gay, and they're not homosexual, but they have been called that or teased that over their life because they've been in touch with their feminine side. And so that's the society we're breaking free from. I feel we're really rebuilding a new earth that's more balanced between masculine and feminine. I am very masculine driven as a woman. I'm very independent. I have been an entrepreneur for a very long time. I just feel it's kind of easier for a woman to be in touch with their masculine side than a man to be in touch with their feminine side up until now. I feel that shift is happening. It's just about men giving themselves that permission.
What would be
Does that make
another?
sense?
It does make sense. What would be another way that we could describe that? Because that's not going to mean shit to a man. What do
Right.
you mean? I need to be more in touch with my feminine side. We don't have the
Okay.
we don't have
Yeah,
the way of understanding. I understand completely what you're talking about, but if you look at the the common man or the guy out there that maybe his wife says you need to go see this lady, or there's this person that I want you to go sit down with, and she's going to help you open up your heart center and embrace all that you are. What's another way that we could describe that, where they need to get in touch with their feminine side?
Giving them permission to not always have it all together. I feel that a lot of men, like you stated, have been the fixers and have been, you take care of the household and you make everything better. And I think men need to really embody the idea that it's okay to break down emotionally. It's okay to feel feelings and not have all the answers and all the solutions all the time. It's okay to nurture yourself and love yourself and treat yourself the way you would treat a woman you love, like with that same nurturing aspect, it really, really is okay. Because my brother, for example, he's very, very, very macho man, gym guy, he and I could not be more different. And when my grandpa passed away, he couldn't even go in and say goodbye because he couldn't share the emotion with our family. He felt too much like he had to keep it together. And that broke my heart. It's okay to feel. It really is.
It is okay to feel. So we could probably sit and ponder this for a very, very long time. But one thing that pops into my head, so if we're thinking about men and how do we get them okay to feel, because you're incredibly right? I mean, it's going to be hard for men initially to grasp that concept or idea that I don't need to have everything in order, or I don't need to fix everything. I'm not responsible for the weight of everything that's around me. And that it is okay to break down and allow that. So I would, because I'm sitting here thinking about my own self and how I would, what works for me sometimes and what doesn't work for me. But I think getting a man to connect with his anger and be in the space of his anger and his frustration, because that's a really easy emotion for a man to feel. It's one that we typically can go to quickly. It's one that we're very familiar with. And a lot of times, and especially unless they're an asshole, a lot of times that's an emotion that they have stifled and haven't allowed to fully embrace and let out and feel. And I think that anger is just a mask of sadness and fear underneath. So if we can get them into that space of anger, and let them feel that and be in that space, like what's the thing that really pisses you off, or, whatever the case may be, and then holding that space so that they can move through that and then get to the deeper stuff underneath that. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say, anger is something that women don't normally have permission to feel as well. Anger and rage, because we all have to be all pretty and, whatever. It's like, no, a woman can be pissed. That's okay. Feel that, because that anger can be fuel. You're absolutely right. Underneath that anger is a lot of fear and a lot of, emotion that's being masked through another emotion. So when we pull the layers of emotions back, we can see what the shadow is that's crying out to have light, integrated into it, so to speak. Because I don't believe that we acknowledge our shadow to get rid of it. I believe we integrate it. It's all aspects of us. Everything is.
I agree. I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's something that, because people think about, well, how do I get fully healed, or when will I get to that point in my life where I don't have any of my shit anymore and I'm completely healed and I've let go of all that baggage and it's no longer a part of me? I don't think that happens. I think we always have it. Yeah. One thing also, so you talk about the divine feminine, and I love feminine energy. I feel like I'm very connected in the sense to where I'm, really comfortable in my own feminine energy. And we've got 3 girls and a beautiful wife, and I have no problem with women. I think that a lot of women, and I'm sitting here. I shouldn't do this because I think I sit here and talk, and then I envision the person that's out there listening to the podcast, and they're like, "This guy's so full of shit." But anyways, it's my podcast. I can say whatever the hell I want.
That's exactly right.
So I think that women in probably a lot of different areas, not just in the new age or spiritual realm, I think they feel like in order for them to fully embrace their feminine energy and be powerful and to live their self and their truth and in their honesty and all that kind of stuff, they have to overpower the male energy that exists in their life, whether that's literally like their husband and their boss, or I don't know how it will manifest, but I feel like because they feel like there's been such a repression at the hand of men literally in their life, as well as on the big grand cosmic scheme of male and masculine and all that kind of stuff. I feel like they have to come forth in such a way to where, do you know what I mean? And it harkens even more to like the whole feminine movement of, women empowering themselves, because men have been such a repressor all of these years. And I think that's so asinine. I don't understand. I mean, granted, there's probably aspects of it that I don't understand because obviously I'm not a woman, but that doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't seem balanced in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's just another misqualified imbalance. I feel that each of us are striving to integrate our masculine, feminine, and find balance within. And fortunately, I'm not in a relationship, but I'm surrounded by relationships that are very healthy and synergistic between both partners. And the common theme between each of those relationships is each partner has a sense of self and a sense of purpose. And, that's so important to show up in a relationship as a partner, not, someone is greater than, or a woman looking up to her man or what. No. We are partners, And so I find a lot of value in relationships between both partners who have integrated the male and the female.
It's pretty unique, I suppose. It's
absolutely.
It's not that necessarily that common, I think, all that much yet. Hopefully it'll become something that's more regular and more commonplace. But I do agree with you. I think that at the core of it, that key component is the awareness of self and really loving yourself and understanding who you are and being confident in that space of just you and you alone and your place in the big, huge cosmic spin of stuff.
Just all boils down to living authentically.
So this is a really shitty question. I probably should have asked you earlier, but what do you feel is the biggest thing in your life that has been the biggest challenge or roadblock or the most difficult thing that you've had to move through in your experience?
Definitely trusting my voice. Definitely trusting that what I have to say is worth hearing. Really finding that confidence behind my voice. I shared anytime I tried to express myself, I'm a big, loud, colorful, intense, emotional energy. That's just who I am. And that's, not super comfortable for everybody. And so through being shut down, I had to reignite my voice. And so it's very interesting because last year I had a 5.5-inch mass removed from my neck. Talk about clearing the throat chakra. So since that surgery...
What was it? Like, was it a tumor, a growth?
It's totally benign. It was... gosh, I don't even remember the medical name of it, but apparently we have, the way the doctor described it to me is we have like gills in the womb and they fall off apparently, and mine didn't. And so they typically discover these growths in children and they're the size of a tangerine, like typically at the largest, but they discovered mine when I was 32, and it was quite larger than a tangerine. So anyway, my whole point of sharing that is, since that clearing, it has been significantly evident. The opportunities that have presented themselves, the relationships that have shown up, the business ventures, everything has opened up for me to use my voice. And it's just, that's definitely been the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is trusting that, and trusting that I will not be shut down when I use my voice.
So what's one way that you do trust that? What's one way that you kind of work the practice of trusting yourself and your voice and the fact that you have worth and everything like that? What's one way that you kind of work that practice on a daily basis?
I am a huge advocate of self-care, and that's just to maintain my relationship with myself. So I have dates with myself. I'll like make art dates with myself where I'll just create one night, or I'll do salt baths, or I'll do like just little rituals or ceremonies just to stay in touch with me and keep that invoked, keep my spirit invoked and alive and well. And then also my meditation practice, every day I connect with spirit, and I am a channel, so let my will be your will and thy will be done, And so I just open up and let whatever flow through me. And a great exercise has been in the Facebook group. Every morning, I just ask Spirit, what am I supposed to write about today? And I just type. I have no idea what's going to come through. This week, I pulled from the book, The Four Agreements, because I was moving through something personally. I feel that Spirit gave me a tool to kind of back me up so that I didn't have to come up with something original every day. But those tools really, in turn, guided me through what I was moving through this week. So it worked out perfect. But my point is, every morning getting to share what Spirit is telling me and share it with others, and then hear the feedback of how it resonated with them. It's just really validating. And, I try to not let my ego get in the way. It's very interesting, was that okay? And then I get caught, well, there I am caring about what other people think. And that, so I am definitely practicing what I preach. But to answer your question, it's really maintaining that sense of self and that connection with Spirit. And that will help me stay confident using my voice.
That's good stuff. Do you like the Epsom salt bath?
I am obsessed. I have a friend who makes crystal salt baths, and so she puts essential oils and different crystals, and you can tell her what you're moving through and she'll customize them. I don't even know where I go in these baths, but it is so addicting. I take 3 or 4 a week because I connect so deeply, and I come out of every bath feeling like I was just inspired. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I highly recommend them.
Have you ever floated before?
I have. Yeah, I saw you. Don't you go around traveling and installing float tanks or something?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I floated one time actually at Sarah Grace's space, and it was awesome. I was a little stressed out about my purple hair dye ruining their water. So
yeah.
Other than that, I wore a swimming cap, but I did have the thought, if I didn't have purple hair, I'd probably be able to relax a little bit more because I was a little codependent about dyeing their water. But the whole experience itself was incredible. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you like the Epsom salt bath, then you got to go hop in a tank because it definitely has the steroids. yeah it is. It's definitely a salt bath on steroids.
Yeah, good stuff.
So when it comes to clients and working with clients, what's the easiest way for people to kind of reach you, get a hold of you, find all your information?
I have a website, KaelaMcGuire.com. My name is spelt KaelaMcGuire, but probably the more easy way is to go to Facebook group, Passion with Purpose, and you can find that at passionwithpurpose.love, and it'll just lead you straight to the group. But like I said, I post in there every morning. So anybody can go to my personal page and send me a message, or go to my website and check out my services. And yeah, I'm happy to be of service to anybody who feels called.
before we close, or not close, before we end the episode of the interview or whatever the hell we're going to call it, let's play a game. Let's do something. I'm going to take advantage of having you as a guest. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that I've come to you for some help, for some guidance. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a little bit about me. We've been chatting for just a little bit. If you can get some sense of something that you could help me with, or something that you feel that, you know, may exist in my space, or some issue, or whatever the case may be, let's hear it. Let's see what we can do. So then people get an idea of what Kaela McGuire does. Or you can ask me any questions too, if you're not, you know, maybe there's not something that's jumped out at you.
Well, there's a question that I'm dying to ask you since listening to your Susan Grace episode. So I think this is a good opportunity.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, and I'm genuinely curious about your perspective on past lives.
Okay.
And and I totally respect your answer to her that you think they're bullshit and all of that, and all we have is the present moment. And I fully agree with you. But I honestly have been contemplating this since listening to that episode. And I'm wondering, how do you think of history?
So if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it. I think it's the last episode, the most recent episode. So whenever the hell this... Anyways, go find the one with Susan Grace. It's a good episode. She was really cool.
Very good episode.
So in my understanding, or my mind, right, I went through this whole spiritual journey awakening and had all these remembrances of not just this life and my experience as a child and growing up and always being connected to the flow of energy in the universe and all that kind of stuff. But then I started to have things that would come to me through meditation or through experiences with my wife, where she would get some portion or piece and come back and share it with me, and it would tie into all this beautiful dynamic stuff that was taking place. And I also had like actual sessions or readings with other people where they would take me on some sort of crystal journey or past life experience and get some really profound, amazing stuff. And I loved it, and I really benefited from it and really believed it, right? And it's not that I don't believe it now, but I feel like my understanding of the way time works is far different than it was back then. So in my understanding of the way time works, we don't really have a past and we don't really have a future. That all things that exist everywhere, like in the amount of infinite space that exists out there, all things are spinning and moving at the same time. Everything's just vibrating at the same time. So when I have a past life remembrance or something, when I have a connection with a past life energy of mine that we would label or classify as a past life, it's just some other form or fashion of my energy. So for me, I think we're all connected, and the energy that's inside me is the same that's inside you. And so you and me stem from the same source of energy. So you may have one drop that is the same, like, I don't know how to describe it, but basically there's portions of everybody in everybody else, right? Everybody's connected and from the same source of energy.
Yeah.
And in my big ball of spin that's me, I have these other pieces of energy out there that have more of me. So maybe there's 75% of my energy connected with this other thing out there spinning. So when I connect with that portion of my energy, it's at the time and place of alignment where I'm going to benefit and glean information, and that energy is going to benefit and glean information from where I'm at, because they're having a vision or a meditation or a reading or something of some guy moving through my life. And then with that information, we just raise our vibration as a whole. So my vibration here raises, their vibration there raises, which in turn raises all of the vibration that is me up. And so I don't think of it as past or future. I just think of everything now in the same time frame. But it is very challenging, because what the hell do you do with history, right? It's really easy. I mean, I can remember yesterday, for God's sakes. So I don't have a good answer for it. Do you know what I mean? I don't really.
I was just curious what your answer would be if you did have one, because I'm following you and then I'm like, but wait, well then what does this mean? So that leads me into to play your game, because I think that would be fun. I want to touch on, I loved your comment that vision boards are bullshit. I think that's great that that's your perspective. So I'm curious, what tool do you use to co-create?
So I think a vision board typically is used in regards to manifestation and the law of attraction. And so we're going to put out into the universe what we want to attract. And it's just a physical representation of that. And I like the way that you describe it. I mean, do I think they're bullshit? Yes and no. But I think that the way that they're typically used or thought of is kind of bullshit. But the way that you described it, where you have to do much more, right? It's more of, here's kind of the basic groundwork, but then we're going to do a lot more work in order to manifest and bring forth these things. It's not just putting a picture of $1,000 on your vision board and then sitting around and waiting for $1,000 to appear. But I think that we always are manifesting. I think the law of attraction continually works because it's not something that we have to somehow activate or some flow of energy that we have to connect with. It's simply just the way that the universe spins. And so it's much easier for us to be at peace with and understand that it works in a positive way. So I'm going to put forth good energy and good vibration, and what I put out there is going to come back to me. But it works in the negative as well. And so all the negative things that we have in our life, we've attracted. We've drawn forth all of those things because we're in a constant state of manifesting. And so for me, I don't necessarily have to, and when I say have to, I don't think it's a weakness or I'm like some 10th level manifester where I no longer have to use a vision board. That's not what I think. I just think that I try to be consciously aware of my thoughts and my energy and my feelings because I'm aware of how that manifests in the reality. And so if I get down, because a lot of times when I'm positive and I'm vibrating really high and I'm functioning in a good place, then obviously I'm bringing good shit in and everything's working really well. And so it's more or less when I'm in that place of depression and sadness and being stuck in some of my shit, then I'll kind of go back to some other things where I'll journal a lot, because for me, journaling helps process through some of that emotion and that minutia of stuff that spins in my head. I talk a lot with my wife. My wife and I are constantly in that space of kind of helping each other process through some of those things.
Nice.
And then, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a practice, right? So I really have to just stay committed to the practice of being mindful and consciously aware, not just of being at peace and happy and grateful and everything in regards to the planet and thank God that I'm here and whatever the case may be, but really consciously aware of my thought process and what I am thinking, because I understand, or I believe that carries massive amounts of energy. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Working with the teenage girls, I used to have a weekly group with teenage girls called Awakened Teens, and it was amazing when we did self-talk exercises, like what conversations they had in their head, and just to see the aha moments when they realized, that they actually have control over those conversations. Negative thoughts will come up and don't push them back down. Just, recognize where they're coming from and, take the information from there. So that's awesome. When did you first learn about that, about your power to participate in your reality?
Looking back, like if I go back into my life, I had awareness of that, even though it wasn't necessarily on the real conscious level. But I always moved through life in a certain way where I believed that I could do anything. I could be anything. I just had to learn it. And so if I wanted to do this, I could do that, no matter what it was. It was just a matter of learning that skill or becoming that thing or embracing whatever it was. And then growing up, in my teenage years and things like that, I got to the point too where I realized that I could almost get anything that I wanted. And, I had a really naive way of understanding it, I think, or looking at it. But looking back now, I can see how that was me, focusing and using energy in a sense to kind of manifest and bring forth that stuff. But as far as like, my understanding of the way that it is now, my belief system now, I mean, that's probably only in the last 4 or 5 years of really starting to understand and embrace and tap into and work with the universe and the energy that exists out there.
On a conscious level, because it sounds like subconsciously you always have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think everybody does. I think everybody,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think that we are born connected to that flow of energy that we all stem from.
Absolutely.
And we always stay connected to that flow of energy. We just have wonderful things that happen to us in our life to make it feel like we're disconnected from it.
Mm-hmm. Were you supported in that? Was your upbringing supportive of you manifesting things that you wanted and things, or was that kind of a solo internal journey?
Probably more of a solo internal journey. Do you know what I mean? Like, awesome. Was I supported? I mean, I had a relatively decent childhood and upbringing and everything like that. And so I wasn't, not bastardized, that's not even a word, but I wasn't ostracized or judged or by like my parents or anything like that. So I guess I was supported, but it was more internal in my own head and in my own dialogue and kind of understanding that, I could be anything that I wanted to do. It seemed as, if there was something that I really wanted to achieve, even on a small scale of like being good at school or doing this activity or whatever the case may be, if I typically put my thought and my energy and my mind to it, I was good at it and I could get what I wanted.
Awesome. So you had that sense of self and that sense of inner power. And then as you grew up, you became conscious of the energies around you that are assisting you in that. Is that right?
Yeah, more or less.
It's so important really to have that relationship with self and relationship with spirit. But we're going to get pulled in every direction until we really become conscious of what's happening, right? And it's us to wake up to that. What do you feel your divine will and purpose is? Like what just fills you up the most?
I think that everybody has the same divine will and purpose. I think it's our humanness that thinks we have to pick or choose or have a direction. I think our divine will and purpose is simple existence and joy, the continual, perpetual movement towards joy and happiness and love. I think that's the whole reason why we come to this experience as humans, is simply just to be in the space of love and feel it in every way, shape, and form that we have the capacity to feel it as humans. So I think that's my divine will and purpose, is joy and happiness and love. But as far as like, what the hell am I going to do in the time span that I'm here, experiencing joy and happiness and love, it's helping people. It's really, do you know what I mean? I've always liked listening to people and counseling people and giving people advice and kind of helping them in the space of really finding. So if we look at my belief of everybody just is here solely to experience love and find happiness and joy and be in the space of it, I guess my purpose would be to help people along that journey of getting closer to that joy and happiness on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. That's awesome.
Well, Kaela, thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig.
It's absolutely wonderful. Awesome. I really, really, really appreciate it. There's another fucking I just threw out there.
It's all good. After you caught yours, I started catching mine. So I apologize if you have to edit mine.
No, I don't good.
I'm not tripping.
So KaelaMcGuire.com.
KaelaMcGuire.com, passionwithpurpose.love.
Excellent. And thank you so much. And hopefully you're in Northern California, right?
I am.
So it's probably relatively beautiful outside.
It sure is. We had a nice rainy day yesterday to make it all sunny and green today.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Go out and have a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. We're having a human experience. Yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience. If we want different results, we have to change our behavior. Love and lighting our way out of situations will not always work. Our outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on within us. I don't believe that we acknowledge our shadow to get rid of it. I believe we integrate it.